Hi, and welcome to the Pole News. Guys, in this video, I'm just going to concentrate on the Northern Hemisphere with regards to what's going on with the magnetic high-intensity regions, one over Canada, one over Siberia, Russia, and just bordering China, the north border of China. And on the Southern Hemisphere, we'll talk about it perhaps tomorrow. What I want to do is just bring your attention to the Siberian pole at the moment, and we're going to have a look on Google Earth and then on Nullschool with regards to the temperature, and try and gauge just what's going on with the climate with the relationship to the magnetic poles. And we'll also include a little bit later on in the video some information with regards to what's going on with the jet streams and cosmic rays, and try and tie it all in. The whole idea of this, guys, is so that we can gauge perhaps how long it's going to take before we get the pole reversal and what we can expect. I think one of the biggest things we can expect at the moment is got to do with the climate and the production of food. So we're going to concentrate on the climate with relationship to those two key aspects. So we're on Google Earth and we're looking over the area of Russia and North China. That yellow line that's coming vertically down is in the path of the migrating pole, as you can see, over the Arctic region. It's also the direction of the high intensity. When we look at Swarm's graphics, it's the high intensity region which is covering this area on the Earth, and this area is moving progressively further south towards the equatorial region. And what we want to be doing in the next month or so, towards the end of February, is we're going to be putting two of our magnetometers in the path of the progressing high intensity region, and that will give us an idea of how this anomaly is responding to the movement of the pole at the moment. And remember, we've got two poles, one over Canada, which is, in my view, although it's taken a time of 7 years, it is dissipated probably nearly 1/3 of its overall intensity in nanoteslas. So it's just slowly diminishing, and perhaps there isn't another 7 years left and that intensity will have completely dissipated. Now, if we are seeing as the intensity moves south towards China over Russia, and take that Arctic climate with it, which I'll show you on Nullschool in a minute, where the temperatures are over these regions the coldest, then it stands to reason this is why places like them southern islands on China south borders are suffering those colder temperatures that they haven't seen for hundreds of years. Now, just for a quick comparison, if we look at the Siberian pole, you can see on the right hand side of the screen the temperature, and you can see the darker blue and purple regions illustrating the colder temperatures over the northern hemisphere. When we compare that to the swarm data on the left hand side of the screen, you see it's pretty much telling us the same picture. One thing to note is that on the left side of the screen, the swarm data, this is taken in 2014. Now remember, it was 2011 onwards, for the next 7, 8 or so years, that we've seen a complete reduction on the Canadian side with regards to the magnetic intensity. But you can still quite clearly see on that chart over in Siberia, it is in the 60,000 nanoteslas, and then over in the Canadian magnetic intensity, it's slightly less. Now, comparing it on the temperature chart, you can see there is slightly a bigger region of cold temperature over the Siberian compared to the temperature over Canada, and we can expect that to continue to get smaller and smaller. And I think that this just rebuts what I've said all along, is that there's no coincidence with Arctic temperatures and magnetic poles in them same regions, guys. I think this is conclusive. We're starting to see right now, in 2019, the Canadian region starting to slowly get warmer and warmer, which is good news for farmers over in Canada, But it means that, as the progressive pole moves towards the equatorial region on the Siberian side, it's going to be carrying the colder temperature. So Russia's going to get a lot colder, China's going to get a lot colder, and it's going to keep progressing down towards its antipole over in the South Pole. So it's going to be moving constantly in the direction towards the equatorial region as it does that. How long is it going to take for it to do that? I think we're going to start seeing action in the next perhaps 7 years. I don't think it's going to be that long, but I'm just saying that because of how fast the Canadian pole has started to deteriorate since 2011. Now, a quick look over the northern hemisphere, the Arctic region, and we're mainly focusing on two key aspects of this with regards to the jet streams. That's the polar jet streams, which align themselves up around about 60 degrees, and the subtropical, which should be around 30 degrees. And as we can see, there's a lot of intermixing going on between these two subtropical and polar jet streams over the Arctic region and over the northern hemisphere of the Earth. Now, The reason why they're mixing is because they're laden with a lot of water vapor, and that is a direct result of cosmic radiation caused by two things. First of all, the Earth going through a magnetic reversal, and in turn setting up a weakened magnetosphere, and secondly, the low solar output due to a grand solar minimum taking place right now. Over the last 33 years, of the last 3 solar cycles, we've seen an exponential decrease in the sunspots. And the last time this happened that it was documented was the Maunder minimum, about 1860, and it was classified as the mini ice age. So we can correlate the low temperatures on Earth with low sunspot numbers, but I think this time round it makes it a lot worse because the Earth's going through a magnetic reversal, and both the low solar minimum will shrink the heliosphere, allowing more cosmic radiation in, and a weakened magnetosphere will allow a lot more cosmic rays into our atmosphere, and therefore create cloud nuclei and cloud seeding, as it's known, which is condensating on cosmic radiation, which in turn puts more water vapor in our atmosphere, and in turn it blocks out thermal radiation, warming up the Earth that it's normally accustomed to doing. And with a low solar output, again on top of that, we get a double cooling and a double increase in cosmic radiation, and as a result our polar jet streams and subtropical jet streams over both northern and southern hemispheres of this Earth end up looking like what they do, and that is a complete mess and a shambles. There should be nice individual jet streams going around the northern part or around the polar region, and a nice jet stream around the subtropical region. And of course the problem is when you're ladening up these jet streams with lots of water, and all of a sudden cold air and water come from the polar regions down into the subtropical regions. As soon as it starts to get warm, we start to get precipitation, and of course wherever the jet streams are over continents, they're going to dump that water. And if it's over the northern hemisphere, we get the reverse happening, subtropical jet streams carrying warm, moist air up into these colder regions, and of course it condensates straight out into more ice and snow. And that's why we're getting these flash floods, where, in an hour, we're getting probably 4 months of rain. In some worst cases scenarios, we're getting, a year's worth of rain in a couple of hours over some regions. And, this is going to continue to get worse as the magnetic poles and the magnetosphere weaken and the poles reverse. And this really is, guys, why I say, main aspects of planetary mechanics starts and ends really with the magnetosphere and the magnetic poles. I mean, we're looking at a jet stream probably 1,000, 2,000 miles wide, which is, huge. And, you can hardly distinguish the subtropical jet stream with the polar jet stream. And that big jet stream that we're looking at over the northern hemisphere right now is somewhere in between the two. Perhaps the top part of it is around 60 degrees, where the polar jet stream should be, but there is no, according to that, no subtropical jet stream. And as you can see a little bit further to the left, it is drawing up subtropical weather into the polar jet stream, and as a result there's probably more snow and sleet falling in these regions. But the big thing for us here, guys, is there's not going to be any best place to be on Earth for the next 50 or 60 years because of the jet streams are unpredictable. And that means cropping seasons are going to be unpredictable. And as a result of that, we're going to start to struggle, in the not too distant future, because this, as I've said before, hasn't reached any equilibrium. What we're going to struggle is certain crops that we generally enjoy at, the good seasons when these crops are normally in. We're going to be starting, at some point, we're going to be going into the supermarkets, and some of this food's just not going to be available because it was either devastated in a flood or a drought as a result of the heavily laden jet streams and the unpredictability of them. So even though we can plan, if we have a healthy sun in not a grand solar minimum, even if that wasn't the case, the fact that the Earth's still going through a magnetic reversal and the jet streams are laden with cosmic rays and cloud seeding, therefore more water in them, and that's what's making them so fat and slow and yonder so much as what they are in the peaks and troughs around the world. This is what we're going to be faced with for the coming future. So I know some people have prepped for a good couple of years. Some people have got a 5-year prep, with regards to food, but really, we're going to have to be a little bit more shrewder than that, guys. I think we are going to have to be thinking of being a little bit more flexible as to where we're going to be based, because it's not so easy to migrate to and from planets in a time where, things are going to start collapsing, and they can collapse very, very quickly in a short space of time, when especially people start to panic. Now, our governments may already be fully aware of this, and as a result of that, they may be taking some contingency plans, which probably have been on the cards with regards to them for 10, maybe even 15 years. Because I'm sure, even though they haven't come out and told people about the dissipating pole over the Canadian region at the moment, and that the fact that there is 2 magnetic poles right now over the Northern Hemisphere, it doesn't stop the fact that they haven't been planning for it, and they don't know about it, because I do believe that they must have people that have put all this together already in the government. But the thing is, they're not coming out and clearly telling people. And what we're trying to do is just do that on this channel and website and inform you of these changes, and just to let you know that they haven't reached an equilibrium yet. So we're not at the worstest parts of this yet, but there is a lot worse to come. Even if the magnetosphere, as they're saying, has weakened 20%, because I think it's more along the lines of 25 to 30%, but even if it is 20%, there is still a lot more decaying of the magnetosphere to come, because we haven't gone into those weak field lines where the poles progressively move faster. Now, one of the questions that we are going to continually keep asking, because I think, there's a lot of things in flux, things are changing all the time, but I think the most important questions are how long and what to expect. And, we can get an idea of answering those questions. And like I say, it is going to slowly change. I mean, at the moment, we're still in the Northern Hemisphere, further away from the sun because of the natural tilt of the Earth and the position to the sun at this time of the year. So, these things do fluctuate, and, North Score will change with regards to temperature on there. But I think this is one of the things we're going to be using that data for, that we collect, is to try and build a model, because I've got a sneaky idea that there is a sensitive temperature region of about, which fluctuates between 10 degrees. I think it's about that 10 degrees Celsius, and that makes all the difference with regards to the intensity of magnetic poles having an effect on the temperature in those regions. So, one thing we're going to see, I think, in the next few years is Canada at least have, and South America have North America have slightly warmer winters. I think that's what we're going to see over that part of the Northern Hemisphere. But over, the Siberian, Russian and Northern China regions, we're going to start to see that gradually getting cold. And, we're already starting to see the effects in China with regards to its output of staples. It's becoming an importer. It's got a huge nation of people to feed, and they are power hungry. They need and require a lot of energy. And, this magnetic pole reversal that the Earth's going through, as well as the grand solar minimum, is going to have a major effect on those 2 key aspects for those regions on their own rights. So, before I end the video, guys, the whole idea of this is to get these magnetometers in Canada, in probably North China, and get them in Australia, and then if we're lucky, get them over in Argentina and the Falkland Islands, and we can get an idea of better what is going on with these poles, and maybe we'll be able to use some of that data in a modelling system that gives us an idea and makes it better able for us to predict climate with regards to those things that are changing with these magnetic intensities. Because, like I showed you on the map, there is no question in my mind that what we're seeing now with the coldest regions over the Northern Hemisphere, and we'll talk about the Southern Hemisphere tomorrow in a video perhaps, but over in the Northern Hemisphere, what we're seeing is a duplication. When we look at swarms data, and even recent data, what I showed you in a previous video, where we saw that since 2011, we saw that area of Canada dissipating in magnetic intensity. Its field strength was dropping, and dropped, in my view, quite fast, especially with regards to how planetary inertias are concerned. On planetary scales, things happen really slow, but to see that change since 2011 to 2016, I think it went up to on that little video that I got from Swarm, was dramatic changes. So by collecting data, guys, we can get a better idea, we can make better predictions, and we have always, for the last 7 years on this channel, did a real good job of making predictions. I mean, where we are right now is exactly where we said we would be with the grand solar minimum, the 33 years or the last 3 solar cycles dissipating, and the results, what would happen as a result of that. We're seeing right now, we're seeing climate being changed. It's not made by man-made CO2 into the atmosphere. It's nothing at all to do with CO2 in the atmosphere. And yet they can say, yeah, okay, I can agree with them. Yes, carbon in the atmosphere is a tri-molecule, and therefore it does affect solar radiation. But, they completely omitted the fact of the most abundant greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, and which is on the increase as a direct result of cosmic radiation, that being CO2. Sorry, H2O, water. There's more water in our atmosphere than there is CO2. And when you compare how much CO2 to how much water is in the atmosphere, it is a colossal difference. The amount of water that's in our atmosphere far outweighs and makes CO2 look so insignificant. Yet they've chose that to focus on, to drive their climate going warmer. Well, I said planetary mechanics sometimes has a slow inertia. And since 2007, at least, we have seen, a level out or an equilibrium in rising temperatures. And that was because we was on the back of, a sun that was producing a lot of sunspot activity, and therefore we enjoyed a modern maximum period of time. So it was warmer in any case because of that. But now, the inertia is starting to show its effects. Now we're starting to see the effects of cooling, and as a result of that, the Earth is going to get cooler, and to hamper that, we're going to have more water in our atmosphere, which is going to block out more solar radiation, heating the Earth as a result. And adding to that, we're going to get these sporadic weather patterns where we get tornadoes, hurricanes increase, where we're going to get flash floods and droughts as a direct result of these big yondering jet streams now that are going from the subtropical to the polar regions and the intermixing of the two. And we're even seeing southern hemisphere jet streams cross over the equatorial region and then deposit wherever they do into the subtropical jet stream path, which drags it straight up north again. It's just chaotic weather that we're seeing globally, and like I say, none of this has reached an equilibrium point. So over at Patreon, guys, as you can see, we've got 94 patrons, and that's absolutely fantastic. And we've raised $544 at the moment. I still think we can do a lot more than what we have, guys. We're at 19,500 subscribers, and although $544 is better than what we had last month, because we didn't have this last month to put into equipment and other things, it's still, in comparison with what these organisations have got, a drop in the ocean. And we can only do a certain amount with $544. So guys, we need to do more if we want to do more. And I'm hoping that we can encourage a few more people. Now that we're taking a more proactive approach, we're putting these magnetometers in different locations around the world to collect more data. And we're not just going to stop at the next 6 magnetometers, 2 going in Canada, 2 going in North China, and 2 going in mid Australia, and a couple perhaps in the Falkland Islands and in Argentina. We're not going to just stop there. We're going to put them also at a later date in the epicenters. And also, guys, the way we're going to be, the reason why we're doing things the way we are with these magnetometers is because we want data quick, right? So that means we're going to use SD cards. But there is a Mark II version that we can have with these magnetometers. I'm not going to start building the Mark II now, because right now I want to get these magnetometers out. I want to get the data coming in. We can do a Mark II later where, there's no need for SD cards. We can just have these. Some of people have got routers in the properties. These magnetometers will be programmed to self-calibrate themselves at the locations, as opposed to me showing them how to manually calibrate them. So they'll self-calibrate themselves. It's just down to programming in time. That's why we're not going to go down that route. But we'll also put Wi-Fi on these data loggers in the future, and we'll just have them self-configure themselves, so that as soon as they're switched on, they'll calibrate themselves to the location where they are, so that when we start getting data, it's all the same. And they'll be constantly communicating with the residents' router, so that this data is getting streamed live up to the website. So we won't have to wait a month before we have a look at the data that we've collected. But it's early days. We've got a small budget. The only thing that can increase it at this time is if we raise the stakes, raise a bit more money, and then we can get on with doing more with the observatory. But for now, we've got what we've got, and we're going to make the most of it, and it's going to give us data hopefully from the end of February. I've got all this equipment coming in around from the 10th to the 17th. This is what they've said that the delivery times is, because some of this stuff's coming from China in any case. So we're going to have the stuff around mid-February. We'll have it all built within a couple of weeks of me investing some time in it, and then programmed, and hopefully at the end of February we can get them shipped out fast to the locations of where they're going to go. So we're going to start selecting people around February time. There's no point doing that now. I know a lot of people have said that they'll help us with this by having these magnetometers on their properties, which is absolutely fantastic. But we're going to start selecting those properties and positions on or around about February. So guys, the Patreon accounts there, we're at 94 at the moment, and we've got you know, $544. That's absolutely great. We've raised a bit of money on PayPal as well, guys. If you don't want to use Patreon, you know, the PayPal link's there as well. So, you know, there's no more to say anything about this upload. You know, thanks for your time. Thanks for your interest in the topic. And, you know, thanks for following these reports. What we're trying to answer, guys, for you is the big two questions: how long and what are we looking at? So, you know, with more data, we can get a better idea as to what we are looking at and how long we've got. And, you know, with that, guys, the links are down there in the description. Thanks again. And big thanks to all those people that have become patrons and are, you know, supporting the channel on PayPal. Great. And I'll say what I usually do. Bye for now.